Assalamu alaikum, everybody. How are you all doing? I hope you're all well. My name is Yazid Dardir. I'm going to be facilitating for today. My role in Corich is I'm a marketing agent for them, and marketing agent. And today we have a lovely talk. But before that, let me just introduce Corich. For those who don't know, we are the first coaching firm and platform in Saudi Arabia. We are a group of passionate advocates for bringing the human elements back to work. We thrive by enabling the we culture in organizations through providing a different approach to thinking, communicating, working, and living. As a firm, we collaborate with businesses to help them highlight their purpose and lay the foundation of a we culture that develops their workforce at all levels and helps them create a humane and psychologically safe space. As a platform, we collaborate with individuals to help them elevate their self-awareness and lead their way towards their personal and professional growth. Believing in the power of teams and psychological safety, we let go of the hierarchical system and turned Corich into a teal organization, becoming the first company to implement holacracy management system in Saudi Arabia. Every year, during the holy month of Ramadan, we give back to our community by offering daily talks and workshops that embrace different values. We call this initiative Zakat al-Ilm, which means the charity of knowledge. We decided that this year, our theme is going to be humanity, because with all that's happening in the world, something about this pandemic brought us back to our roots of humanity. So now I'd like to welcome our speaker, Mr. AbduRahman Afia. AbduRahman Afia is the co-founder and managing partner of Eye2Eye, an online leadership development company. He's been in Saudi Arabia for the past 20 years, together with his wife and 4 children. He is passionate about developing people and is delighted to be here with us all in this journey. Now, before we start, I just like to let you all know, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Have a great time. And if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box where Mr. AbduRahman will hopefully answer them by the end of this webinar. So for that, I leave you to Mr. AbduRahman.
Thank you very much, Yazid. Can I just check, Yazid, can everybody hear me clearly?
Let's check. Yes, everybody can hear you.
Lovely. Okay, wonderful. Well, good evening, everybody, and well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where it is that you're joining us from today. I'm delighted to be part of this initiative. As soon as Tawfiq, who was the person who contacted me from Corich, called me about this, I told him I would love to be a part of it. In fact, I told him 2 things. I told him I was so happy. Some of you might have heard this story, but he was the first person, Tawfiq from Corich was the first person that I had received a genuine phone call from in about 3 weeks. The only time that my phone rang for 3 weeks was from Hunger Station or one of the other food delivery companies or from a supermarket delivering our groceries. So when Tawfiq called me, it was just really nice to hear another human on the phone that just wanted to talk and didn't want to tell me that my food was outside. So I was over the moon to be a part of this initiative. I think it's a fantastic thing that Corich are doing and something that absolutely dovetails with my own personal and professional values. Now, I am aware that some of the speakers that have already presented and some of the speakers who are still to come have extremely impressive credentials. And they come from various different angles and backgrounds, some of them bringing vast amounts of academic knowledge and research as well as experience. Well, what I'm going to be doing with you today, I'm going to do 2 things. We're going to be focusing or talking about the power of one's mindset. We call it the leadership mindset. But what I'm not going to be doing is giving you a lecture. What I am going to be doing is sharing some of my story, starting from when I was a young boy and leading up to where I am today, the lessons I learned along the way, and those that are also supported by academic research. So it's not just me sharing ideas off the top of my head, but whatever I share with you is grounded in sound knowledge. So what I'll do, if it's okay with everybody, I'm going to share my screen with you now so that I can take you through a few of the slides that will help us to go along the journey that we're taking this evening. Okay. I always tell people when I share my screen on a Zoom call, this is always the time when my heart starts racing a little bit faster, because if this goes wrong, it all goes wrong. We're going home. But hopefully I'm in safe hands and everything will be fine. Okay. Now, hopefully everybody can see my slide that says, I started smoking when I was 9 years old. Now, most people, when they hear that, they think to themselves, wait, what's he talking about? He started smoking when he was 9 years old. It's absolutely true. I started smoking when I was 9 years old. And by the time I was about 13 years old, I'd say I was on about 20 cigarettes a day. By the time I was 14 or 15, I was easily on 40 cigarettes a day. But it all started when I was 9 years old. And I remember I took my first cigarette inside my maths classroom. So I was there. I couldn't understand what the maths teacher was talking about. He was talking about fractions, and I didn't understand any of it. But I was there, trying to smoke a cigarette. I didn't know how to smoke, but I was there trying to smoke a cigarette. So the first question that people usually ask me when they find that out is, how could you be smoking at 9 years old? Well, there's a reason that I'm going to share this story with you. You see, when I was growing up in London, I was born in London. This is me growing up. I look quite different then. I always tell people that I didn't have a big beard when I was this age. So this is me when I was about 6 years old, about 6, 7 years old. I grew up in St. John's Wood in London, in a really lovely part of London, a very good part of London. I was very happy. I was an extremely happy boy, as you can see in that picture there. By the way, that's not a cigarette or a big Cuban cigar. No, it was a Star Wars lightsaber that my parents got me when my sister Jenny was born. So when she was born, they bought me that to try and, I guess, make me feel, that I had something as well to play with, because they had my sister to keep them busy. So anyway, I was a really happy young boy when I was about 5 years old, 6 years old. When I was 7 years old, my parents took me out of the school that I was in, and they put me in a new school. Now, the school that I was in was called Mrs. McCaffrey's School. I loved it. Not only did I love it, everybody loved me, and I loved them. I was Mr. Popular. But then my parents took me out of that school. They thought it would be better for me to move into another school. That school was only about 5 minutes away from Mrs. McCaffrey's school, but the difference between Mrs. McCaffrey's and the new school was I had no school friends. None of my friends went there. So I went from being a really super happy boy to being a pretty angry, unhappy young man or young boy. In fact, I couldn't keep up academically. I always found school really difficult. And so when I couldn't do well academically, I tried to get attention by playing in the class, by fighting in the class, by disrupting the class, annoying the teachers. I'd do anything I could to get attention. I didn't know at that time that I had attention deficit disorder, which I found out later on in life. And I also had dyspraxia as well, which made me really clumsy, and I found a lot of things difficult. So anyway, 7 years old, I'm at this new school and I'm fighting with everyone. I'm disrupting the class. I'm a nightmare. So I've gone from being this really happy young boy that you can see in that photo to just a nightmare of a child. And after about 3 months, the school picked up the phone. They called my mother and my father, and they said, you need to take your son away from our school. We cannot have your son here. He's too much. So my parents were shocked. They took me out of that school and they put me in another school. Now this school I should have done really well in. It was called University College School. It's a really famous school in London, in Hampstead. It's kind of the equivalent in schools to Cambridge or Oxford or Harvard. It's the Ivy League. So it's like that, but a school. And all of my cousins, for many generations, they all went to that school. But it was a little far from my house, so my parents never thought before to put me there. But after the problems at the other school, they said, let's put him there. They'll look after him. Well, that didn't work out too well. And within about 3 months, I was back to playing, fighting. I would do anything to get attention. I remember one time I would, I remember going into where the older boys were playing football, and I would take the ball and run away with it. I was just trying to get attention. I remember I got my arm broken actually by one of the older boys because he was so angry with me. And I was wild. Anyway, that school, UCS, after about 6 months, 7 months, they called my mother and my father and they said, you need to come and collect your son. We cannot have him in this school anymore. So now this is the second school that I got expelled from, right? So the first one, Mrs. McCaffrey's life was amazing. The second one, disaster. The third one, disaster. So my parents sat down and they wanted to make the best decision for me. So they decided to send me to boarding school. So if you're familiar with boarding school is where you sleep inside of the school. And this one was in Devon. It was a beautiful, beautiful school in Devon. It's called Dartington Hall School. Fantastic school. You can look it up on the internet. You can Google it. Amazing reputation. Now, it was founded in 1926, and it was incredibly famous. But just before I joined, the owners of the school passed away. They died because of old age. When they passed away, new management came into the school, and they brought a new educational philosophy. This educational philosophy appealed to my parents. My parents thought, this sounds good. This sounds like what he needs. So what was the philosophy? The philosophy was, if you give children unlimited freedom, they will assume responsibility for their own behavior. So what did that mean? That meant this school had no school rules. No school rules. You didn't have to go to class. You didn't have to go home at the end of the day. You could do whatever you wanted in the school as long as you didn't break the law of the United Kingdom. You get it? So that was the idea. Give kids freedom, they'll become responsible. So they thought, our son's a wild child. This has got to be the best place for him. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was probably one of the best times of my life. Even up until now, I had an amazing time. I found I became responsible. I started to learn how to make my own bed. I started to really understand what it meant to kind of do things for yourself for the first time in my life. But it still didn't stop me from misbehaving or from fighting or from playing in class. Now, I went to that school just before I was 9 years old. And when I'd been there about 2 months, I noticed that a lot of the children in the school were smoking cigarettes. Even the young kids were smoking. I thought, that looks pretty cool. I think I'll do that. So I said to one of my classmates, I said, can I have one of those? And he said, yeah, of course. And he gave me a cigarette. I took the cigarette. And that's when the maths teacher said to me, shh, no talking. He didn't say no smoking. He said, no talking. Shh. I said, okay. I put the cigarette in my mouth. I took the matches. I lit it. I didn't inhale because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing this. I was like, this is cool. I like it. And that's how I started smoking when I was 9 years old. Now, after about a year and a half of this amazing school and this amazing freedom, the school called my mother and my father. And they said, you need to come and get your son. We cannot keep him at this school any longer. He's too wild. I'm going to pause for a minute and I'm going to ask you, the moderator, is my kitten making too much noise? Because if my kittens are making too much noise, I'll get somebody to come and take them.
I can hear it, but...
Let me send a message to somebody to come and get them, okay? So bear with me. I'll get rid of them in a few minutes, okay?
All right.
All right. Let me just call someone. You lot. Tell somebody to come and be with the cat. All right. So at 9 years old, well, I was about almost 10 and a half at that point. They called my parents and they said, come and get your son. We can't keep him here. He's too wild. My parents said, but this is a school with no school rules. How can he be expelled? How can you get kicked out of a school that has no school rules? It's impossible. No. Have you ever heard of it? Ask yourself now. Have you ever heard of somebody getting kicked out of a school with no school rules? How do you do that? It's not easy. That's how bad I was. So they took me out of that school. They took me out of that school and they left me in the house for about 2 months with no school. They put me in another school. I got expelled from that one. They put me in another school. I got expelled from that one. And I got expelled from 5 more schools, kicked out of 5 more schools after that time. So I went through my life from 9 years old, well, before that, 7 years old, being expelled, kicked out of every single school that I ever went to. And I failed every single exam I ever took. Until I was 18 years old. When I was 18 years old, my mindset changed. My way of thinking changed. What caused the mindset change? Well, 2 things happened. Number one, I embraced the religion of Islam and I became a Muslim at 18 years old. But that's not what changed my mindset. The first thing that it's part of what changed my mindset. But really, the thing that changed my mindset was when I was 18 years old and I became a Muslim, I found myself homeless. I found myself without a family. Why? I'll tell you. When I became a Muslim, I was 18. And I didn't tell my family because I knew they'd be really upset and angry with me. So I kept it a secret. I didn't say anything to anyone. And then after about 3 months, 4 months, I wanted to start growing my beard. So this beard that you can see has been with me a long time. And I wanted to start to grow it. And I knew once I started doing that, I'd have to speak to my mother and my father. So I remember I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell them. And I remember they were sitting downstairs and they were watching television. My parents are not religious people at all, by the way, not at all. But I knew it was going to be a shock for them. So I came downstairs and they were watching television. I said, Mom, Dad, I said, I need to speak to you. And they said, sure, son, what is it? I said, okay. I said, I became a Muslim. And I remember it like it was yesterday. My father started laughing because he thought I was joking. My mother started crying because I think immediately she realized I was serious. So when that happened, things were very difficult at home for a little bit of time, but not that bad. And then after about 2 months of starting to grow my beard and, having a new way of living, a little bit different from before, my parents and my sister took me out for dinner. They took me to a lovely Italian restaurant in St. John's Wood. I always remember it, beautiful restaurant. And after the meal, before the dessert came, my father said to me, so listen, you can be a Muslim. It's fine. Do what you want to do. You're crazy anyway. Like, we can't stop you. Do what you want to do. But you can't be a Muslim and stay in our house. You can't pray in our house. So I remember thinking, wait, what? Where's dessert? Where's the ice cream? I wasn't expecting this. I said, are you serious? They said, yeah, we're serious. He said, it's easy. You can come home with us tonight. Come home. Everything is normal. But you cannot be a Muslim. You cannot pray in our house. I said, I'll pray really quietly. I won't disturb anybody. Just I'll pray really quietly. You won't even hear me. He said, it's not about hearing. It's about knowing. We won't have it. We won't have it. You make a decision. I said, listen, I love you. I love you guys so much. Remember, I'm 18 years old and my family, they're very wealthy. They have a lot of money. Everything was easy for me growing up. In fact, I never worried about doing well at school because the plan was always for me to take over my father's business. That was 100% the plan from when I was young. I'll take the business from him, just like he took it from his father. So at 18 years old in this Italian restaurant, I said to them, I love you so much, but I love the one who made you even more. And I'm a Muslim. They said, that's fine. It's not a problem. But you're not our son. From today, you're not our son. And they left. They paid the bill and they left. And I remember that night walking out of the restaurant in St. John's Wood, and I had nowhere to go. It wasn't that late. I think it was about 9 p.m. And I remember thinking, what just happened? What do I do? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't have any friends because most of my old friends that I used to go to nightclubs with and do all these things with, they didn't really want to know me anymore. I didn't want to go to them. I was embarrassed to go to them. I didn't have anyone. So I walked to the local mosque. There's a big mosque in London called Regent's Park Mosque, Central Mosque it's called, built by the late King Fahad. And I waited there from about 10 p.m. until about 4 a.m. for them to open the gates to go and pray, the morning prayer. At that point, for the first time in my life, I knew that the only person who was going to help me, the only human that could ever help me, was the person that I was looking at in the mirror when I was making wudu, when I was getting ready to pray. And before we pray, we wash our limbs. I was looking in the mirror and I remember thinking, you're the only person that can help me right now. Of course, God, Allah. But from the people, I have nobody. And that is the first time as a young man that my mindset started to change. Now, the reason that I'm telling you all of this is leading to something that I want to share with you and share some things, some tips, some strategies, and give you a tool that you can take away and use to help you to have a more powerful mindset, a more determined mindset, a leader's mindset. So the reason I'm telling you this story is that was the time when my mind started to change. Now, another thing that happened at that time is I was a Muslim, a new Muslim, but I was still smoking about 40, I was probably on about 40 or 50 cigarettes a day. Because remember, I started when I was 9 years old, so it's not surprising. So I was on about 40 or 50 cigarettes a day. And you know what? I had tried to quit smoking so many times. Like really, from 16 years old till 18 years old, I tried to quit so many times. I didn't want to smoke. I really didn't. I didn't want to smoke, but I couldn't quit. And from 16 to 18, I was so dedicated to quitting smoking that I probably quit smoking on average about 6 or 7 times every single week. In other words, every day I would quit. And then I'd have a cup of coffee. Oh man, a coffee and a cigarette, you know, it's too, I have to, okay. I can't stop. So I carried on smoking. And I couldn't stop. Until one day, I remember just after I was about 18 and a half, I remember getting a cigarette and looking out of the window, and I was thinking, wow, all the stuff I've been through, you know, my mother says she doesn't know me, my father doesn't know me, my sister, nobody knows me from my family now. They cut me off. And I had this cigarette, and I thought, wow, I've given up or I've sacrificed a lot because of my new faith. And I remember putting the cigarette to my mouth and thinking, why am I doing this? My new faith is all about purity and being, you know, clean and putting healthy things inside your body and not putting anything bad in your body. And I'm there smoking. And after 2 years of trying to stop, when I thought to myself and I asked myself, why am I doing this? When it goes against what I believe, that was the last time I put a cigarette to my mouth and I put it out. And that's when I realized that sometimes in life, it's not just knowing what you want, but it's understanding the why. Why do you want that thing? So when we want to give up bad behaviors and start adopting new, healthier habits, wanting it, knowing what you want, sometimes for it to be made firm in your mind, you have to reflect on the why. Why do I want this thing? Just knowing what you want, not enough. You take time to think about, why do I want this, or why do I not want this? And the power of why, at that point, my mind started to change so much as I started to realize these things, even as a young man. I'll give you one more example before maybe we might be pausing for some questions, I'm not sure. But let me give you one more example before we get into the tips and the few strategies I want to leave with you before we round up. It's not going to be much longer. But one of the things is that this continual development, this continual awareness, this continual wanting to improve yourself, for me, from when I was 18 and I started to improve my life, I realized there's no finish line to development. And you're constantly always getting, having to find ways to make yourself have a more focused and determined mindset. Now, I know the importance of knowing what you want, and I know the importance of asking yourself, why do you want it? But I'm human, and we all forget. When I came into Saudi Arabia 20 years ago, two things were different about me. If I could hear you now, I'd probably ask you, what do you think they were? But I'll tell you what those two things are. Two things are different about me. Number one, I'm 20 years older than I was when I came here. I came here as a young man at 26. I'm now 46. So I'm 20 years older, and I'm probably about 20 kgs heavier as well. And I'd like to tell you that I'm 20 kgs heavier because of old age and because of working so hard and studying, but it's probably just eating too much capsa over the past 20 years. But actually, even though now I'm about 20 kgs heavier than I was when I was 26, and that's not good, I was actually a lot bigger and a lot larger and a lot heavier just a couple of years ago. After I came to Saudi Arabia, and I'd been here for some time, I started to get bigger. I started to work so hard that I wasn't going to the gym, I wasn't taking care of myself. And with time, I became too big. In fact, my weight was about 136 kgs, 136, 137 kgs. And I'm not a big guy, I'm not a tall guy. I'm 5'7". Okay, that's not tall. But I was walking around at about 136 kgs. And I tried so many times to lose weight. And I would say, I want to lose weight. I was going to go and buy clothes, and I couldn't find clothes to fit me. And I say, man, I've got to get in shape. I want to go back to the old me. But I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. In fact, this is a picture of me not that long ago. Now, maybe with the camera, you can't really see the difference. Just so we're clear, I'm the guy on the right. But maybe you can see, I hope you can see, I was really large. I'm still a little big, but not like that. The person you see in that photo, and by the way, on my plate, very healthy food, grilled chicken. I remember the day, grilled chicken, peas, one potato. I mean, I was saying I want to lose weight, but it wasn't happening. Until one day, I remember the day. I remember saying to myself, wanting it, from your past, it's not enough. Why do you want to lose weight? I got a piece of paper and a pen, and I started to write anything that came into my head on this piece of paper. Why do you want it? Why do you want it? Why do you want to lose weight? And the only thing that I could write was my children, my family. And I started to think, man, I don't want to die early if I can help it. I don't want my children. I was thinking about the funeral. I was visualizing, if I was to die because of obesity, because of being so large, the impact that would have on my wife and on my children. So I want to be there to see everybody get married, to see everybody grow up. And it hit me again. It's all about the why. Why do I want to lose weight? I want to lose weight because I want to be there for my family. And when I had the why, that's it. I was in the gym every day. I started losing weight every single day. And of course, I've got a long way to go, but I went from 137 down to about 96 kgs, And that is because, again, the power of why. It's all about knowing what you want, but also why do you want it? So if you get stuck in your life and you can see there's somewhere you want to get to, but you can't get there, then maybe it would be helpful to take a paper and a pen like I did and ask yourself, why do I want this? And write down everything that comes to your mind. And when you write it down and you look at it or you put it up in front of you, that can be the game changer. Now, I'd say to the moderators, I'm happy to carry on, but would you like a break? Does anybody have any questions, or, at this stage?
Yes, for now we have 3 questions.
Sure.
First one, I have to leave right now, unfortunately. Please let us know how to access the recorded version. The recorded version of the webinar will be on YouTube, hopefully very soon. Second question from Ru'a. Why didn't they put you back in the first school? Is there a reason?
That's a really good question. I'd have to ask them that. That's the first time. That is the first time anybody has asked me that question, and I've never thought about it. So thank you very much for that. I'll ask my parents, who I now have a good relationship with. I'll ask them that. I'm going to send them a message after this. I'm going to ask them, why didn't you put me back in Mrs. McCaffrey's? That's a good question. Thank you for that. I don't have the answer, I'm afraid, but I'll get the answer and I'll share it with Coreych.
Brilliant. What a lovely segue, because our next question is, how did your relationship get better with your family?
Okay, I'm going to get to that. And at the end of the presentation, maybe if that question hasn't been answered, we can discuss that. That's fine. But I will touch on that in what remains.
Brilliant. Then for the moment, these are all the questions we have so far.
Fantastic. Okay. So understanding the power of why is incredibly helpful, but I'm going to show you something. I'm going to share a tool with you that will help you even more to make the power of why more effective, more powerful. But before I get to that, what I want to share with you is growing up the way that I did, being expelled from every single school, failing every single exam. It's quite ironic that my 18 of my years in Saudi Arabia, 17 of the 20 years was spent holding very senior positions in universities here in Saudi Arabia. It's quite ironic. I hated school. I failed all of my exams until I was 18. I hated education. I literally when you do your exams, in England anyway, you used to get a letter. So you get A, B, C grades. E would be the worst, or F, I'm sorry, F would be a fail. I didn't even get A, B, C, D, E, or F. I got U on my exam grades. U means unattended. Like he didn't even come. That's what it means. For me, I remember the day of my exams, I was where I shouldn't be, just, doing things I shouldn't have been doing. I hated school. It's quite ironic that from that time until I came to Saudi Arabia, the change, I've held positions as director, vice director in more than 5 universities here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So clearly something changed, and I'll share with you what that was. So anyway, growing up the way that I did, with everybody telling me that I was a failure and believing that I was a failure, it really affected my confidence. It really affected me growing up. And that's because who you spend time with is who you become. And all of the people that I was hanging out with were either a bad influence on me, or they were telling me I was never going to be successful. I mean, every teacher I ever had told me, you're never going to be a success. You're going to be a failure. I remember teachers would hate me so much, they would drag me out by my hair out of their classroom to throw me out. That's how much they hated me. I would get hit by teachers. I did not have a good relationship with teachers. So I realized who you spend time with is who you become. And there's something that I came across a few years ago that I want to share with you. Maybe you'll recognize this now. This fish here, have you guys seen this fish before? I know you can't say, but maybe you can put in the chat window if you've heard of this fish. This is a beautiful, beautiful fish. And if you don't know, it's called a koi fish. It's a Japanese fish called the koi. Very beautiful. You see them in ponds a lot of the time, right? The koi fish If you keep the koi fish in a pond where the size of the pond is not very large, then a koi fish will grow on average to be about this big. The amazing thing is, some koi fish, not all, some koi fish, if you take them from the small pond where they don't have a room to grow, and you put them in a bigger pond, a bigger area where they can grow, the fish can go from this size to this size. If it's given an opportunity to grow, meaning if you change the environment, you change what's around it. If you change the environment and you change what's around it, the fish can grow to the point that some koi fish, if you put them in a large area of water with no restrictions on their growth, they've been seen to grow to this size here, which shows your environment, the people around you, the environment, or what thoughts you keep in your own mind can have an incredible impact on what you think is possible or not possible to achieve in your life. You see, growing up, I had a mindset which was simply, I cannot succeed, so I'm going to fail. I'm just going to fail before anyone fails me. I'll fail myself. But it wasn't until I realized as I got older that I don't have to behave like that. And I do have control of my mind, if only I can let go of my self-limiting beliefs from my past. And that's why I want to share with you today some things that I've learned, both through experience and through academic knowledge. Because whilst in the past, growing up, I hated studies, I hated education, I clearly since that time have become very educated and gone through the system. And 3 barriers to having a powerful mindset is what I want to share with you. I just want to share these 3. I don't want to go into much detail because of time with them. And then I'm going to go from the 3 barriers to 3 factors for having a powerful mindset. And then I'm going to share with you a tool that can really help you to stop or to give up unhealthy, negative habits to make way for more positive, healthier habits. So anyway, the 3 main barriers to a powerful mindset, and this is mainly out of Harvard University. Number 1 is having a lack of defined purpose. We've already talked about that. You know, the what and the why. Okay? So according to Brian Tracy and other people, they say your degree of happiness is really relative to how much control you feel on what's happening around you. So the more you know why it is that you're doing what you're doing, the more focused your life will be and the stronger your mindset will be. But until you have a defined purpose, you'll just blow about, or you may blow about like a leaf in the wind. So it's really dangerous to have this lack of defined purpose. And just like me, when I was younger, I had no purpose. I didn't know what I was doing or why I was doing it. And that's why I was just on this self-destructive behavior all of the time. The second factor, one of the most common reasons for a barrier to a mindset. And by the way, why do we want to know barriers to a mindset? Well, a barrier stops you from going through it, right? So if I'm driving my car down a street and there's a barrier and I can't see the barrier, what's going to happen? I'm going to keep crashing my car every day because I can't see the barrier. After a while, I'm going to say, forget it. I'm not even going to go down that street anymore. But if I knew where the barrier was, then I could have just gone around and I could have got where I wanted to get to. That's why we're looking at 3 barriers. So number 1 is a lack of defined purpose. Number 2 is limiting self-beliefs. And that's exactly what I showed you with me growing up. I never believed that I could be anything. I never believed that I could succeed. So I just wanted to fail as quickly as possible. Let's just get it over and done with. Let me fail and get kicked out of school and fail an exam. That's why I didn't even go to an exam, because my limiting self-belief told me there's no way you can pass the exam. And do you know what? That was complete rubbish, absolute rubbish. I could have not only passed the exam, I could have passed with honors. I could have probably been one of the greatest students in my class. But at that time, I didn't believe in myself. I thought I was rubbish. Limiting self-belief, a terrible barrier to mindset. And the third one, and this is according to Harvard, is most people fail to have a mindset that allows them to move forward because they're waiting for permission or for a sign to start. They're waiting for somebody to give them permission. Go ahead, do it. You know, you want to start a business, you're going to wait for somebody to tell you to go and do it. You've got this great idea, you're not going to tell your manager at work about the idea because you just think, maybe I'll wait for them to ask me. Gary Vee is a really interesting guy at the moment. Gary Vaynerchuk said, you haven't started because you're not taking the first step. Waiting for permission or a sign to start will hold you back from reaching your potential. And on the flip side of the three barriers, of course, we find the three factors. Three factors for a marvelous mindset. And again, these are founded in research, which I'll share with Coreych afterwards, both out of Stanford, Harvard, and Cambridge University. So they're really important things here. The first one, yes, is what I said. Know your why. Knowing your why is one of the most important things. That's why I said, if you get stuck, you say, I want to lose weight. I want to get a promotion. I want to get where I want to get to in my life. Knowing what you want is not enough. Sometimes, if you feel you're not making progress, simple, paper and pen, scribble down, why do I want this? Why? Why? Because when you do the why, you'll find that what comes out can motivate you. And you'll find most of the things that people write are positive things. And positivity has been shown to be a much better motivator than fear. A lot of the time people say, if I don't do this, my life's not going to be fulfilled. If I don't do this, I won't be able to pay my bills. If I don't do, and it's fear that motivates, but fear is a terrible motivator compared to optimism and positivity. So knowing your why, incredibly important. Reframing those limiting beliefs. Saying to yourself, you know what? Forget what everybody told me. Let me try. You know, one of the things I grew up with was dyspraxia. I don't know if you know dyspraxia. Most people don't know it. They know dyslexia. So dyslexia, most of us know, right? It's a real difficulty and a challenge in reading, primarily reading letters. Sometimes they're upside down and back to front. It's just something that some people have. Some of the most successful people in the world have dyslexia. Dyspraxia is really similar to dyslexia, but it's not with letters. It's with objects, coordination. So putting things in alphabetical order, for example, incredibly difficult for me. Putting any type of electrical work, very difficult for me. Putting IKEA furniture together, getting something from IKEA and putting it together, forget about it. Get somebody else. That's what I always thought. I always thought because of my dyspraxia, I'll never be able to be good at those things. A few years ago, when we got something from IKEA, I said, let me have a go when nobody's looking. My kids aren't looking, nobody's looking. Let me try. And what did I find? I found I could do it. All those years of calling somebody, hi, can you come and put my furniture? Could you put my wardrobe up? Could you do? I could have done it. I had to reframe my limiting beliefs. By the way, I still hate doing IKEA furniture. But the fact is, I know I can do it. But a lot of the time, even until today, I'll tell myself, you can't do that stuff, but I can. So be careful of that. And the other one, stop dreaming and start doing. A mindset, a leadership mindset, a mindset, especially during a pandemic like this, especially when there's so much negativity, so many challenging things around us. Having a mindset that says, now's the time, now's the time. That, just saying that to yourself, now's the time. That can be a very effective way in helping you to make progress. When we look to the future, it increases our optimism. When we look at our present or our past, sometimes it can have the opposite effect. But when we look forward, you say, now's the time to build, now's the time to fulfill my dreams, then that can have an amazing impact on your mindset according to research. Nike, I always say this to people, anyone that's here may have heard me say it before, Nike, the fitness company that make the fitness clothing, they were not wrong when they said, just do it. Nike were not wrong when they said, just do it. We have to reframe our limiting beliefs and go from I can't to I can. Now, before we finish, And I open it up for any other questions you might have. And feel free to ask me anything you like. Like I said, I'm not a university lecturer, even though I worked in universities for many years before starting my own business. I want to share with you a really powerful tool. And this is a tool and a template that you can take away. We'll share it with you after the webinar. Corey's can send it out. It's a really effective thing. Now, how many of you have a to-do list? I'm sure that many of you keep a to-do list. It's a wonderful thing to do. You know, you write down what it is that you want to do that day or that week or that month, and you use it, you tick things off and you move on to the next thing. A to-do list is a great thing to have. I think it's great. A lot of you have it. Let me ask you another question. How many of you have a stop doing list? A stop doing list. You see, a stop doing list is really different to a to-do list. Now, I'm sure, I can't see the chat, but I'm guessing that some of you actually use a stop doing list. I used a stop doing list for a while, but what I found was, it wasn't that helpful because I know what I want to stop. But then I developed a technique that can be incredibly useful in making your stop doing list become one of the most powerful tools that I've ever used. And I've shared it with thousands of people. And I've had hundreds of testimonials of people telling me how effective it was, both in their personal and their professional life. So I'm going to share that with you now before we wrap up, okay? So just bear with me. I'm sure in 5 minutes we'll be done. Usually what I do, if I'm in a face-to-face workshop or if there's people on the screen with me, I'll say to people, what's the one habit or action that you'd like to stop doing? That if you could stop doing that action, it would make you more productive. It would make you healthier. It would make you a more productive human being. So most of the time when I ask people that in a real life workshop, most people tell me two things. They tell me, if I could get more sleep, that would be a wonderful thing. If I could stop using my mobile phone so much, that would be a wonderful thing. If I could stop starting my day by looking at the news or my emails, that would be a wonderful thing. Why would it be a wonderful thing? Because if I stop doing that, it would allow me more time to do better things with my time. So people often tell me, you know, when I start my day watching the news, it brings me down. When I start the day with my emails or my social media, it brings me down. A lot of people will tell me when I go to bed at night, I have my mobile phone with me and it stops me from going to sleep and getting a good 7 or 8 hours sleep. So what I do with them is I share this technique that I'm going to share with you now. So let's take as an example, somebody who wants to stop doing something. So I've already created a template because I know that you can't, at this point, engage with me. And let me show you what it is. There are 5 stages to an effective stop doing list. And you can take this away and use this today. You will see how effective it is. Let's take this as an example. With a stop doing list, there are 5 things that you do. Rather than just, you know, like for example, a to-do list where you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Or a stop doing list where you say, this is what I want to stop doing. You break it down into important psychological silos. So the first thing is you have to identify, what do you want to stop doing? What is it? So we've already spoken about the importance of knowing the what, right? I wanted to lose weight, okay? I wanted to stop smoking. The what. You identify it. In a template like this, on a piece of paper, you write down what it is that you would like to stop doing. Then you answer the why. We've already spoken about that. The why is so important. So you then identify, why do you want to stop it? So you would write down, what are the negative results, the negative impact of me doing this thing? And what will be the positive benefit of making this change in my life? What are you doing here? You're forcing your brain to scan for positivity, to scan for reasons, to scan for a purpose. Remember, we said one of the barriers to a positive mindset was a lack of defined purpose. So what you're doing is, it's a conscious act of forcing your mind to really think more deeply about this thing, this habit that you want to stop, why you want to stop it, and then how do you plan to stop doing it? You list the action steps one by one. First, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that, then I'm going to do this. Because a lot of the time we fail And our mindset doesn't allow us to move forward because we say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop using my mobile phone. Okay, when? Now, from today. But there's no plan. And when there's no plan, they say you're planning to fail. So you look at the what, you look at the why, you look at the how, and then when. Because when we say, I'm going to stop today, maybe that's not realistic. Maybe you need to scaffold it gradually. Well, first, maybe by next week, I'm going to do this. The week after, I'm going to do that. And by the 28th of June, that's when it's going to happen. So you start to plan with a time frame. And then the last thing, and maybe the most important one, is who. Who can help you to stop doing it? Because when you have accountability partners, when you have people in your network and you share with them what your goal is, it can be a fantastic way of you having a firmer mindset. When you know that your family know that you've committed to doing this thing, they will help you rather than enable your bad behavior. They'll support you in your positive changes. So you think about who it is that can help me. Who can help me with this? So an example, before we wrap up, let me show you what this would look like. Let's say here, somebody says, I want to stop using my phone before sleeping. Now, out of the hundreds of people that I've done this with, this is the most common one. We say, okay, what do you want to stop doing? Stop using my phone before I sleep. I think a lot of people can relate to that. That a few years ago, people didn't take their mobile phones to bed with them. Now you find it's the last thing that people look at before they sleep, and it's the first thing they look at when they wake up. How is that? So you look at and you write down on a piece of paper or in a template like this, what I want to do. Why do you want to do it? Well, I'm not able to fall asleep. I can't get a good 8 hours sleep. I feel exhausted because of doing this thing. And that's why I want to stop doing it. I feel exhausted because I can't get a good night's sleep. Now, I'm also going to write down the positives. If I can get a good night's sleep, then I'm going to have more energy for work. And more importantly, more energy for my family, to take my family out. So now you're looking at that higher purpose, right? You're defining the purpose. Then the next thing, and it's important that it's written, that you write down is how are you going to do it? Okay, so let me think about it. All right, I'll stop using my mobile phone after 9 p.m. And how am I going to do it? I'll leave my phone outside my door because I know if I put it if it's next to my bed, I know I'm going to use it. All right, when? Well, I'm not ready just to stop like that. I'm not ready just to stop like that. No, I'll stop using it from 11 p.m. tonight. And then what I'll do is next week, I'll bring it down to 10 p.m. And then on March the 10th, that's it. I'm going to stop using my phone at 9 p.m. I'm going to leave it outside my room. And the last thing, of course, who? Who's going to help me with this? Well, if I don't tell my wife and children, then it's easy for me to sneak my phone back in there. But I'm going to tell them what my plan is. I'm going to ask them to help me. So my plan is, in the last column, I'll tell my wife and children why I'm stopping this habit. I'm going to ask them to help me. And I'm going to tell them, be tough with me. If I start slipping, if you see me going in my phone, you have permission to come and take it back from me. That's how much I want to stop this habit. So this stop doing list can be a fantastic way of giving up unhealthy, negative behavior and adopting or making way for more positive behaviors. This is one of the most effective tools that I can share. And there are so many, but with the limited time that we have, I wanted to at least be able to give you something that you can take away, I hope, and share with other people as well as use it yourself. Because it's understanding the power of your mindset, understanding what the barriers can be, understanding what the main factors are to having a positive leadership mindset, and also having tools and strategies similar to this one. They're the things that can take you and make you more than what you ever thought you could be. You see, when I was this young boy here, I told you, I hated school, I hated education. I got, when I was 18, kicked out of my home by my mother and my father. My sister didn't want to know me, she wouldn't talk to me. I got married when I was, oh, better be careful. I got married, I think, when I was 19 and a half or 20 years old. I went from being, I come from a very, very wealthy family. My father regularly used to meet with Princess Diana and people in the British royal family. I come from a high level of society. At 19 years old, I was working in a market in South London, in Brixton, selling perfumes. I worked in supermarkets, stacking shelves for minimum wage. I worked as a taxi driver. I did anything that I could do to support my family and allow myself to become educated again. And now at 46, I'm able to say that not only is the relationship with my mother and my father fantastic, and with my sister, but not only that, but my own education is at a place I could never imagine. And not only is my education extremely high, but I'm very proud of the fact that my children also were nothing like me. And my children also have educated themselves or been educated at the highest level. And so one of the proudest moments, and I'm going to finish now, one of the proudest moments of my life was last year, on the 9th of February, 2019. I had decided in 2017 to go and get an MBA. Now, many people have an MBA. It's a fantastic qualification to get. And I decided, despite all of my experience, my qualifications, that's the one qualification I wanted to go and get. But I decided to go and do it with my son, my oldest son, Abdullah. And so Abdullah and I, we went to the same university together, and we graduated on the same day. We went up on the same stage. In fact, Abdullah went up and he collected his MBA 10 seconds before me. And when I got my MBA on the stage, just after Abdullah got his, and I looked into the audience and I could see my mother and my father and my sister were all there cheering and shouting and clapping, and they were so happy and proud. And as I got my certificate, my MBA, I remember lifting it above my head and waving at them like that and thinking to myself, I never imagined that not only would I be getting my MBA the same day as my son, but my mother and my father and my sister that kicked me out of the home were there watching me, clapping for me and proud of me. And that was the day, 2019, when I graduated with Abdullah. And that's my mother and my father and my sister. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope that it brought some value. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. But all I can tell you is the power of mindset is so incredibly important. And that's why I'm so proud to be associated with CoReach, because they do so much to help people develop and understand the power of their own mindset. So I'll finish there, and thank you very much indeed. I'll open it for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, Mr. AbduRahman. That was absolutely amazing. For me, I really enjoyed the talk. Now, before we start with the questions and answers, we will be launching a quick feedback poll that's not going to take more than a minute of your time. So if you could fill it out. And then we'll be moving to the Q&A.
Sounds good.
So let's start with the Q&A. From first question from Neda. She's asking, on the statement, who you spend time with is who you become. Does it work in reverse? Part of me wonders if I'm a failure, won't the successful people I want to be with not want to be with me? I realize this is somehow an excuse.
Okay, firstly, you need to know that you're not a failure. The very fact that you're asking such an intelligent question and showing such self-awareness, you're not a failure at all. None of us are failures. All of us are people who want to improve, who want to develop, but we mustn't compare ourselves to other people. But I promise you this, if you're around positive people, then positive people, successful people, part of their mission is to want other people to succeed. So I'm sure nobody of any integrity, anybody who's decent, would look at somebody who says, I want to get better, I want to develop. Nobody would look at that person and say, well, I don't want you around me because you're going to bring me down. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't go two ways. No. The person who's here in their development in a particular area and somebody else who's here, you can't drag them down. But if you let them, they'll pull you up and we go up together. So no, in my experience and my academic understanding, you would never pull somebody down. You are the people that you surround yourself with. And don't limit yourself to one person. And in these times when we're locked down, it can be challenging to find people to lift us up. But that's why you're here today. Part of what we're doing here, we're lifting each other up right now. You don't think that this is helping me? This is helping me, being around you. I can't even see you, but I know that you're there, and it's helping me to feel good. Why? Because I'm thinking, I'm giving some value. That makes me feel good. And hopefully it makes you feel good to get some value. So no, I would say don't think like that, not for a minute. The right people will always pull other people up. I hope that answers the question.
Beautiful, beautiful answer, Mr. AbduRahman. Next question, anonymously. How did you come to Saudi?
All right. Okay, well, you see, you need to keep me on point with time, okay? Because I don't, if I'm talking for too long, you just tell me, hurry up, okay?
Feel free to take all the time you need. We're doing very well on time.
I'll start talking too much, but I'll try and give you the concise version. So what happened was, when I was in London, I told you I was working all these difficult jobs, right? So I was working in a supermarket and doing taxi work and working in a market in Brixton, South London, trying to sell perfumes, perfumes, anything I could do to make some money to support my family. And after a few years, alhamdulillah, I found myself with 2 children. So I had 2 sons by the time I was about 23 or 24, I think. And I had 2 sons. And I remember at that time, it wasn't a very happy time to be a new Muslim and live in London. So I remember a lot of the time, if I walked outside some parts of London, there'd always be problems. People would drive past in their cars and they shout out the window, "Go back to your own country." And I say to them, "I'm more English than you." Like, they would see the beard and they'd automatically think that I was from an Arabic country or from, I don't know, Pakistan. I don't know what they thought. But this was happening a lot. And if I went out with my wife and, it started to feel really unpleasant. It wasn't a nice place to be. It's not like today in many ways. Today, there are so many new Muslims, but at that time, there weren't many people that, like me, English people became Muslims. There was a very small community, so it didn't feel very nice. So I said to my wife, you know what? Let's just take a break. Let's just take a break. And we went to Morocco, and we went to Marrakesh in Morocco. And we stayed there for a few months. I had some money from the work that I did. And we stayed in Marrakesh, and I loved it. And my wife loved it, and the kids loved it. It was beautiful. We were so happy. And every few months I would go back, I would leave them, I would go back to London, I would do some taxi work to make some money. And then I said to myself, this is not sustainable. I can't keep going back to England, work, make some money, come back to Morocco. So maybe I can find a job, teaching English. Okay, maybe I can do that. Okay. And I did have, by the time I was 24, I had the basics, to be able to teach English, but I didn't have high qualifications at all. Anyway, I went to an internet cafe because you couldn't have internet in your house in those times. So I went to an internet cafe, and I don't know why, but I had this idea, look for a job. And I wasn't looking for Saudi Arabia. I wasn't, although I always wanted to one day visit. So I remember I saw a job and it said conversation teacher needed. We need somebody for conversation. And I thought, oh, yeah, I can speak. I like to speak, no problem. If they need somebody to teach grammar, forget it. I didn't know English grammar. I didn't even go to school properly. Until I was 18. So grammar was not good for me. But this job said conversation, speaking English with conversation. That's it. I said, all right, let me write to them. So I sent an email. Wallahi, I said to the person, I always remember his name. I think it was Dr. James. I said to him, dear Dr. James, let me start by telling you, I don't have any of the qualifications or the experience you are looking for. And you have probably switched off your computer and walked away. But just in case you're still looking at your computer, let me tell you something about me and why I think I could be good for your school. So I started to write to him, and I was typing so much. I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And I'm a new Muslim, so I can see things from different sides. I was just writing. I don't remember what I was writing, but I tried to convince this guy to give me a job. And I went home. Well, I remember I went home, I told my wife what I did, and she said, "You're crazy. What are you doing?" I said, "You never know." She said, "Yeah, but they want, you know, somebody that's got an MA, and they want this, and they want," I said, "All right, you never know." And the next day I went back to the internet cafe, nothing. And then I went back the next day, nothing. And I kept going back every single day for about 2 weeks, checking the email account, nothing. So I forgot about it. So forget about it. 2 months after that, I was going back to London to go and do some taxi work, you know, to make some money, because I hadn't found a job, obviously. And when I went that day, I needed to send an email to a friend to pick me up from the airport. So I went to the internet cafe and I went to my email account, because not like today, right? Today you're emailed all the time. Back then, you just used your email, you know, once a week if you had to. So I went to my email account and I saw an email and it said subject EO. For EO, what's that? I opened it. It said, "Dear Mr. Afia, we received your application for Al Khalij company for job of English teacher. We're happy to offer you this job. It's 8,000 real." I remember at the time, and when I read it, I had forgotten. Well, I'd forgotten, because 2 months, I'd forgotten that I applied for this job. And I had never heard the name of the company, Al Khalij. I didn't know that. When I applied, I didn't know the name of the company. I just applied. So I was like, who's Al Khalij? And I thought, somebody's pranking me. Somebody's playing a joke on me. And then I thought, wait a minute. This is the conversation teacher job? I printed out the job offer. I ran around to my friend. I called up to him. I told him the salary. It was very small. I told him, "How much is that salary in pounds?" He told me. I said, "Oh my God, I've got a job in Saudi Arabia." And that's how I started my journey to Saudi Arabia. I should tell you that when I got the visa and I arrived in the country, the first thing that happened when they took me to a hotel, and then the next day they brought me it was in Jeddah, and they brought me to the office, and I walked in and I saw the reception guy. He said, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, my name's AbduRahman. I'm the new conversation teacher." And he said, "Oh yeah, great." His name was Hussein. He said, "Oh great, yeah, but actually we've got all the conversation teachers we need now. We're going to be putting you in the grammar class. You're going to be teaching grammar." And wallahi, at that point, my heart was beating. I knew this is bad news. This is not going to end well. I remember I called my wife that night. I remember saying to her, I remember the exact words. I said, "Babe, I'm coming home. This is not going to end well. They want me to teach grammar. I don't know a verb from a violin." And I was sure I would be back in Morocco within 1 week. But alhamdulillah, things worked out. And 20 years later, here I am. So that's how I got here into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Beautiful, beautiful, Mr. AbduRahman. Next question. Let's go with this one from Ahmed. How can I get rid of the feeling of comparing myself to others and always feeling that I'm behind others?
The easiest way to do that, in my humble opinion, to stop comparing yourself to others, is to start by having your clearly defined purpose. For example, whatever is going on here and here, whatever this person's doing, whatever that person's doing, Ahmed, whatever they're doing has no impact on what I'm doing. The question is, what am I doing? And often when we're not moving forward, when we're not developing, when we're not getting closer to our goals, then what happens? You know, when you're driving a car and there's traffic and you can't move your car because of the traffic, what do you start doing? Do you just look ahead? No. People start, when they're sitting in the traffic, they say, "Oh, the traffic's not moving, it's a traffic jam." What do they start doing? Start looking left, start looking right, start looking at what the people are doing in their car. What's that person doing in his car? And you become obsessed with what other people are doing. Once your car's moving, you're not looking at anyone. So the secret is to know that you're making progress. One of the best ways that you can do that is you say to yourself, forget where I am right now. That's limiting. "Oh, I'm here. You know, I don't want to be where I am now. I want to be over there. I want to be up." Forget that, where you are now. Ask yourself, where do I want to be 5 years from now? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my life to look like? Ask yourself that question. Get a piece of paper, because you need to focus on you. You're saying, you know, looking at other people. Forget looking at other people. Focus on you. Just like when I got kicked out of my house, I had to focus on me. Get a piece of paper. List down the 6, 7, 8 things that you want your life to look like in 5 years' time. For example, for me, 5 years ago, I did this. I said I want to be financially stable. I want to be an expert in leadership development. I want to be able to speak Arabic. I want to know the Quran. I want to be healthy. I want my weight to come down. And then you prioritize each one of those things from 1 to 10. You give it a number. And then you start with the thing that's most important to you in 5 years or 3 years. I want to be, for example, financially stable. Okay, that's really important to me. What do I need to do if I want my life in 3 years' time? Example, 3 years. I want to be financially stable. What does that look like? And you write down everything to do with it. How much money do I need? How am I going to get that? What do I need to do to be able to get what I want? I have to develop myself. I have to do courses. I have to pass exams. You put down everything that's needed on a piece of paper for you to achieve that goal of yours. And then you put it down one by one with dates and a plan. And you work on that. And then you get the next thing on your list. I want to lose weight. Okay, what weight do you want to be? I want to be 80 kgs. Okay, so you want to be 80 kgs. What do you need to do to be 80 kgs? I need to do this and this and this. Okay, fine. Put it in a plan. Put dates on it. Start working on it. And what happens? You become obsessed with your own progress. You become obsessed with you moving forward. And just like the car that's moving forward, you don't have time to look left or right. But the only time that you'll look left and right is when you're not moving forward. And there's no finish line to development. Nobody ever can say, I've done it. Not as long as they're alive. There's no finish line. So that would be my advice. I hope that helps you, Ahmed, with your question. It's all about you. As long as your car is moving forward, you won't be looking left or right at the other people.
That is so true, Mr. AbduRahman. I feel like, if I may add,
Sure.
when you have a clear, defined purpose, you won't even have time to look at the other people around you.
And you're absolutely right. And not only that, you'll look at them sometimes and you'll say, actually, they're not doing that great. I mean, I really thought they were doing, they're doing okay, but look at what I'm doing, you know? Absolutely. It's all about you.
Exactly. All right, our next question, anonymously. As an ADHDer, what was the most negatively impacting behavior you were able to change, and how did you do that?
All right, you have to give me a second because there's loads of stuff. I got diagnosed with ADD, by the way. They said ADHD when I was younger, and then ADD is when I was older. But I got diagnosed in London in Harley Street. I think I was about 29 or 30 years old. So I lived most of my life either not knowing about it or being in complete denial about it. But I think that the main thing that I was aware of, well, I think there were two things. Number one, my inability to actually get things done. So, you know, I went through a large portion of my life knowing that I need to do A and B and C and doing all the rest of the alphabet, but those things would never get done. And the way that and I still struggle with it, by the way, despite the fact that I run a business and despite the fact that, you know, quote unquote successful, I still struggle with it. As I said, there's no finish line. You know, I'd be a liar if I said like, oh, every day is a great day. No, it's a battle for me. I constantly struggling, constantly battling. But one of the best strategies that I came across, actually it was my mother who introduced me to it, was the concept of eat that frog, that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with. So there's an author called Brian Tracy, and he wrote a fantastic book called Eat That Frog. And the concept is that if you started your day and the worst thing you had to do every day was eat a frog, then if you did that at the start of your day, everything after that would be easy. That was probably one of the best things that ever helped me to understand the things that I always run away from doing. The ABC that I procrastinate and don't do, I have to face up and say, they have to be at the start of my day. Those things that I don't want to do, I have to get them done. And it might not be enjoyable. I'm not going to pretend it is. It might not be enjoyable. But if I don't eat that frog, those frogs are always going to be there. But if I can eat that frog at the beginning of the day, swallow that thing that I really didn't want to do, then everything else will be good. There's another thing, which is there's a famous American admiral. He wrote a book called Make Your Bed, or something similar to that. And he said, from a habit of discipline, that if you were to start your day every day by making your bed, then no matter what happens to you during your day, you get back home at the end of the day to a bed that was made with sheets that were made properly. That sense of accomplishment and sense of achievement can be enough to stop you from going to bed feeling, I didn't get anything done. So it's about always achieving something each day, even if it's only one thing. You know, for me, I can't, if I say I'm going to get 6, 7 things done today, no, that doesn't really work for me. But saying I'm going to get one thing done today, and if I can get anything else done, that's great. That works for me personally, you know? So that might be a bit of an ADHD way of answering the question. I might have gone around. So I hope that I answered your question to some extent. But feel free to chat and let me know if I didn't.
Lovely. Just to let you know and everybody else, we have 15 minutes remaining. So we'd like to ask your permission. If there were any questions that we're going to take more than 15, would you be okay with continuing? And the same with the attendees.
You're asking me that, or the public?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm cool. Yeah, no problem. I'm here for the evening.
Perfect. All right. Next question from Roa. As an ex-teacher, I'm curious, how did you find school without rules? I've always had a similar philosophy about schools here until I left the system. As a student, did you...
I lost you at the last part of that. Could you repeat the last part? You said as a student?
Yeah, so as a student, did you find it more beneficial?
Oh, to be in a school with no rules?
Yes.
No. As a person, I learned a lot. As a student, it was a total disaster for me. It was a terrible disaster. In fact, the school, if you Google that school, it got shut down about 4 years after I got kicked out of it. It got shut down because the scandals, the things that were happening in the school, it got to an extreme. There were people drinking alcohol in class. There were people doing all kinds of crazy things. It was a philosophy that was too extreme, and I don't think it was a success at all for anybody. I think it failed everybody who went there. That doesn't mean that you can't get a balance. Now, as a person, it was the best time of my life. I became independent to a certain extent. I learned to, stand up on my own 2 feet to a certain extent. But at the same time, it was a very painful experience. 9 years old, being away from my mother and my father and my sister, it wasn't something that I really enjoyed. But I had fun. But academically, it did nothing for me. And the proof is, I got expelled or kicked out of every single school I went to after that, and I failed every exam. So no, I don't think it was a good thing at all.
All right. Next question from Sarah. Why do we always feel rushed, like there's a deadline for success? How can a person be patient when it comes to achieving their goals?
Oh, that's a really nice question. That is a lovely question, Sarah. My advice, based on my studies of this and my understanding of quote unquote success, is we feel that we need or should have achieved success at a young age, often at an early age, because of what we see around us. We're all consuming social media. You go back 10, 15 years when a lot of these apps weren't there, there was no pressure on us really to feel that we had to succeed, because we didn't see everybody around us, quote unquote, succeeding. The reality is, whilst many people are successful, for lack of better words, and we see them as being successful, they are the minority. So people that make it, for example, I want to make my first million by the time I'm 25 years old. Yeah, great. It's excellent if you can do it. Majority of people definitely fail in doing that. but some achieve it. Sure, some people manage without going to university to have amazing businesses and change the world. Sure, they do. But what about 99% that failed when they tried to do that without going to university? It comes down to two things: comparing ourselves to other people and a lack of self-awareness. Self-awareness is where you accept where I am today and where I want to be is going to be a journey. It's going to be a journey. You're going to put yourself, for example, some people will put themselves on LinkedIn or other places and they'll say that I'm an expert in this and I'm an expert in that. And you think, well, how are you an expert? You've only been doing it a few years. I'm not sure that you could be an expert in that. Success, for lack of better words, I'm not sure that I even like the word, is a journey. And we need to bear in mind, and I think that you know this, Sarah, from the way that you asked your question, this development, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's long distance. And for me, there is no finish line. So again, comparing yourself to other people, limiting self-beliefs are absolute barriers to your own personal development. When you're constantly looking and saying, oh, they're doing so much better than me, you always feel inferior. You always feel you're not doing enough. No, there's one question that I have shared with hundreds of people, and people have started to use this, and they've given me great feedback on it. Ask yourself, what can I do today to be better than I was yesterday? That's it. What can I do today to be better than I was yesterday? And that's all life is. It's getting better one step at a time and not comparing yourself to anybody else. So I think that if people have self-awareness, they accept that it's going to be a journey to get where they want to get to. And just like any journey, it's going to take time and they have to be prepared. Then that's good. But if you think that you're going to get it overnight, no, think again. So I hope to some extent that answers your question. If it doesn't, please let me know in the chat.
Brilliant. Next question is, if you were to take something out of these times, what would you pick?
You mean not have had to go through it? Do you think that's what they mean?
I think it would be, it's either that or something along the lines of, for example, if you were to take social media out of these times, just immediately.
Out of the times that we live in.
I think so.
Okay, if that was the question, what would I take out of these times? I don't mean to be difficult, but I wouldn't take anything out of these times. I think these times are the best time that we could ever be alive. I think despite all of the challenges and all of the things that can take us away from achieving our goals, those very same things can help us to achieve our goals. So if the question is, what would I change about our modern time? I wouldn't change anything, except my mindset. The only thing that I would want to change ever would be my mindset, because I can't change what's going on around me. And to think like that would mean that I'm not being realistic. You know, I always tell people, optimism is great. It's really good to be an optimist. But like Sean Aker, Harvard professor Sean Aker says, optimism's great, but it doesn't stop cars from hitting us. And it doesn't stop life from impinging on us. So just like now with COVID-19, we'll be optimistic, but it doesn't change the fact that we've got a really serious situation taking place. So we have to accept the reality of what's around us, but not let it paralyze us. If there's anything that we should want to change, it has to be our own mindset. So that's the way that I would answer that question, if I've answered it properly.
I think you did, because it made, I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
Next question, what would be your golden advice for me to keep going? Because we all get frustrated sometimes.
Okay, that's a question, you know, over the years I had to ask myself 100 times over and over. It comes down to this: each one of us is different, but the most effective way, in my humble opinion, in my experience, my research, is it all comes down to the why. Why should I keep going? Why? Why? For example, a lot of the time, let's say this, back in 2016, I told you that I worked in universities all my life here in Saudi, almost all my life in Saudi Arabia. I held really senior positions, which is so ironic, you know, because I hated education when I was younger. But I got into working universities, and I was very successful, and I had a great career. Now, in those jobs, I would be involved in many things at a very senior level. And leadership development's always been my passion. So wherever I've worked, I've been involved in leadership development, okay? Developing managers, developing leaders. But I was inside the education sector, and it's not where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the business world. But my career had been so successful that I got myself stuck working in universities, and I didn't ever, I think maybe once I applied for a job, but other times people would come for me. We heard about you, would you like to work for us? And I would just go higher and higher. But I wanted to get out of universities, but I didn't know how. So I made a plan back in 2016. I said, you know what? I'm gonna do something to get myself out of education and make my side hustle my main hustle. I'm gonna make leadership development my absolute main priority in the business world. And I'm gonna get out of academia. How? I had to make a plan, just like I described to you. How am I gonna get there? What am I gonna do? And it started, by the way, one of the ways it started with, part of it was to get my MBA. I said, there's no good me having qualifications in teaching and linguistics and all of these things. I have experience in training and certification. I need an MBA to get into the business world. That's gonna help me. Let me get that. Okay, so I got when I got a job in 2017, I got a job at a university here in Riyadh. Maybe you're familiar with it, Dar al-Ulum University, as a vice director there. And the salary was really nice. I said to my wife, we spoke about it. I said, you know what? I said, I'm not going to spend any of this money. I'm going to use this money to pay for my MBA. The extra, the new job, it was more money. We're going to live the same way. I'm going to use that money for my MBA, and I'm going to use it for my son, Abdullah. I'm going to pay for his MBA, and we're going to do it together. That was part of the strategy. So why am I telling you this? We worked hard, blood, sweat, and tears. It was hard to get that MBA. And after almost 2 years, that's when we graduated. That set me up now for positioning myself to be seen as an expert in leadership development. So I decided to start using, when I got my MBA, to start making videos on LinkedIn. Why? Because I wanted to raise people's awareness of who I am and what I do. So why not make videos on LinkedIn? But they're really difficult. I'm shy in front of the camera. I don't like to watch myself in front of the camera at all. It was really difficult to do. And when I started a year ago, I had about 400 followers, and now I've got about 9,000 followers. When I made videos before, they'd get 5 views or 2 comments. Now they get, some of them get 15, 20, 25,000 views and hundreds of comments. When I get a comment on LinkedIn from one of my videos, I reply to every single person. Anybody that makes a comment on one of my videos, I have to reply to them. That's what I do. That's important to me. That's hard, right? It's tiring. I want to just put stuff on Instagram. Instagram's easy. You can put stuff there and nobody really comments. Put things on Twitter, people don't really comment. LinkedIn, when I put a video on LinkedIn, it's going to take me hours replying to comments. I feel like giving up sometimes. I say, man, why am I doing this? This is it's tiring, I say to myself, you know why you're doing this? Because this is how you build your personal brand. This is how you develop your business. This is what you have to do. If you want to get there, then you better be prepared to work. All right. And this is something that I realized when I got kicked out of my house. I was the only 18-year-old that had a BMW 3 Series back in London in my time. I had a beautiful green BMW. I had credit cards with no limit, right? I had anything I want. I was an Arsenal fan. I used to have an Arsenal season ticket. We could go to the VIP section. When my parents kicked me out of the home, within 48 hours, I went back to the home. Guess what? BMW gone, credit card declined, and everything that I had disappeared. I remember I asked my mother one time, I said, Mum, I went to see her at the house. I said, Mum, please, I don't have any money. Can you just help me a bit? And she had a bit of a soft heart. And you know what she said? She found 1 penny on the floor in the house. And she said to me, here, you can have that. Like 1 penny, that's like, I don't know, like half a halala. She said to me, take that. That's all we're going to give you. That was it, So I knew if you want it, you have to work for it. Simple as that. So your question is, how do I stop from giving up? How do I keep on telling myself, keep going, keep going? You have to have a clear, defined goal. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to give up sometimes, but I'll never give up. because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So it's the power of why. Write it down, put it on your vision board, put it on your wall, print it out. Why am I doing this? And that why will power you through, you know?
Brilliant, Mr. AbduRahman. Thank you so much. We truly enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we are out of time. However, I'd like to leave you all with one last question. With what you've learned today from Mr. AbduRahman, how would you apply it in your daily life? Please get back to us on our social media on the Mr. AbduRahman's post. And yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you so much, Mr. AbduRahman.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this evening. I hope that people got value from it. I know that I've really enjoyed it, and I feel wonderful for having been here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Mr. AbduRahman.